Hello and welcome to another episode of Coco in the Sun podcast. I'm your host, Malika Critchlow, and I am happy to be here. So I think the video is I don't know, it seems to be working now, but it was like going slow before. But anyways, today we're on to chapter 8, the sacred elements. So let's see what we learned today. I don't have any news really to share. I can't think of anything except that, love is just the way this whole thing is unfolding. For me, a deepening of love. So it starts with you and it unfolds to other people, beings, and aspects of this life. And I did want to say, how did the love of self start? I did intention for it. And then I think I got like little guidance once I started intentioning for it. Not right away. I wonder how long intentioning works. So it does work. Like if I intention to have a certain type of day, I do get that day, mostly. Not all the time, but mostly. And then like I'm thinking now, like for the intentioning for this whole process, right? I feel like there are different steps I intention for certain things. And at the time it didn't seem like it was occurring. And then like, 6 months later, you're like, oh, this did happen. So I did intention for it, and then I was shown, like, I feel like I went through different um layers of it and still going through different layers of it, which has been quite beautiful. So I guess like that would be the one of the first things you do, to intention to love yourself more, to learn more things about yourself, to learn how to love yourself. And like I said, where to start would be to do something that you want to do for yourself, something that honors yourself, and don't like deny yourself anything as long as it doesn't harm another, if it's possible to give it to yourself, right? So that differs for everybody. And like I said, it could be something small, like watching a show you want to look at, having something to eat that you feel like having, but you're like, maybe I shouldn't have it. I'm not saying to eat badly, but I felt like once I started loving myself, the things I wanted to eat changed too. So I don't really have to worry about that too much. At least I don't worry about it too much. Um, Talking to who you want to talk to, looking up stuff that you're interested in. A lot of our days are still pretty like obligated to other things, but we can find things to help. And then it will expand from there. Then you'll find like maybe 2 things the next day, 3 things, 4 things. And then the next thing you know, your whole life is filled with moments of you doing everything you want to do. So I think that's how it starts. But I was being shown aspects of myself, like I was being able to see myself. And I did things too. I don't know if they were ideas that I had or that were divinely inspired, but I was doing things to see myself in a way that was positive for me. Um, yeah. So I'm not really like a picture person, but I would take pictures of myself and keep it in a private folder to stuff that I think that I looked good in, right? To whenever I was feeling not so good, I could take a look at. Um, that was one thing. Buying clothes that fit me the way I wanted it to fit, right? sometimes you see outfits and they don't really look how you want it to look on your body. So I started really invested in things that I liked how it looked on my body. That made a big difference. Um, yeah, liking what I was wearing. Yeah. What else did I do? I can't remember. But it starts like that. It starts like that. Then I would have little inklings. I remember one time I was falling asleep and I had I thought in my mind, go and Google what a goddess looks like. And when you Google goddess, you see very different shapes. And I connected with some of the shapes. They looked like my body shape. And you know, I expressly understood, like I had an understanding that a goddess looks not just one way, right? And so to limit your beauty to just one thing, or to limit beauty to just one thing would be silly. You know, you are beautiful in your own way. And so that helped. I don't know where that came from. I think, I think I was reading a lot of Hathor then, or researching Hathor. So I would like to think that was divinely sent from Hathor. But yeah, so you'll find things. But yeah, I think intentioning for it is the first thing. Um, and then it naturally unfolds. So when you intention for it, you don't really see it right away. It's just it does naturally unfold. Like you just think of things to do. You're shown things, understood things. You see yourself in the mirror a different way. You might catch a glimpse of yourself that you never had before. Like, oh, um, sometimes it will come from other people. Like you could just be having a really good conversation with someone and they say, oh my God, you're glowing. And you're like, really? And when you hear that from a few people, and you know, all that helps with the self-love, you know, really is investing in yourself and doing things that you enjoy and following your joy. That's how loving yourself, uh, I think, I think that's what it is. That's the road to it. If it's not what it is, it's the road to it. Doing what you love. And sometimes you don't know what that is, so you need to get quiet to hear. If you need to do that, just do that. Just take it moment by moment. Anyway, so yeah, I did want to mention that. Okay, so we're going to do chapter 8, the sacred elements. We view the earth very differently than most humans in Western cultures. Our view is closer to that of the ancients and your indigenous peoples. From our perspective, it is not that God created the earth and the universe so much as God is the process of creation itself, and that God is inherent in the physical matter of the universe. From our understanding, where you are, God is, creation is. Indeed, there is no place you can be where God is not. You are a part of God creation. It is central to everything. Creation moves through and is present in the smallest particle of matter. From this perspective, all of the physical universe is sacred space. It is a hallowed temple. Many people are presently cut off from or have disconnected themselves from an awareness of earth. This has to do with a hypnagogic, I have never seen this word, hypnagogic state of consciousness produced by the belief systems of your culture, which insist that the physical world is the totality of all experience. I'm going to look up hypnagogic. So, a new word. Let's see. Hypnagogic. Hypnagogic is a term that describes a transitional state between wakefulness and sleep. Is that wakefulness and sleep? It can also refer to the waning state of consciousness that occurs when sleep begins. The opposite hypnagogia, eh, the opposite state of hypnagogia or hypnagogia is hypnopompia, which is a transitional state from sleep to wakeness. I didn't even know there's a name for that state because that's where I get a lot of my information, I think. The state between sleep to wakefulness. During the hypnagogic state, people may experience sensory perceptions such as auditory or visual illusions that can be distressing or threatening. I've not experienced that. The perceptions can include hearing sounds or voices or seeing people or things that are not in the room. Hypnagogic hallucinations are brief hallucinations that occur as you're falling asleep and are usually visual in nature, such as images of patterns, shapes, and flashing lights. They can also be tactile or kinetic and can include a sensation of impending threat, feeling of suffocation, and sensations of floating, spinning, or falling. I haven't had that. Hypnagogic hallucinations occur in 40 to 80% of patients with narcolepsy and cataplexy. They seem to be fear producing. Okay, so the transitional state between wakefulness and sleep in which sensory perceptions can be experienced. Hypnagogic. So we are in a transitional state, I guess. We would say to you that the physical world is only one spectrum of experience, and that the physical world is part of the divine, not separate from it. In order to experience that consciousness, you must perceive it by having access to the subtler realms of awareness itself, assessing the subtler realm of consciousness, the archetypal domain in which the sacred elements vibrate as living consciousness allows one to sense a greater continuum of consciousness. This archetypal domain is not the same thing as the archetypes described by your Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung. Rather, our archetypal reference denotes a primordial force that extends through what we would call the underworld of matter. This is analogous to the subquantum realm, a theoretical place where consciousness continually recreates matter. The four sacred elements are part of this ever-continuing process. In our world, we have sounds for each of these four sacred elements. El, the earth, Ka, the fire, Leem is water, Leem, and Om is space or air, OM. These four constitute a vibrational continuum. It is possible to chant the sounds of these elements and enter the archetypal realms in which they exist. It is as if these sounds open the door of perception and allow you to move into the resonant field of consciousness where the archetypal realm of the elements are alive. Indeed, entering into that realm and staying there for a while enables you to shift consciousness and perception in such a way that you sense the profundity of the physical world and also its place within the continuum of consciousness. This is a very powerful practice. Basically, you chant the mantra, El Kalim no less than 4 times and always in groups of 4. So you would chant it 4 times at least, then you might chant it 16 times, and so forth. It is a very powerful practice, and I don't know if I'm going to try that. I don't know if I'm ready. I like to take things slow and easy, okay? But it's still a good practice to highlight just in case I feel ready at some time to try this. It is a powerful practice, and we often encourage the chant to be done 256 times for the fourth power, or 4 to the fourth power. This gives you time to allow consciousness to settle in and to shift through its various states so it can enter the archetypal realm of the elements. There, you perceive directly the aliveness and the continuum of consciousness that expresses through the earth plane. It is very powerful to practice this chant outdoors. I want y'all to see the words. I don't know if you can see it. Can you see it? Those are the words. It is very powerful to practice this chant outdoors where one can sense the elements directly. It is also a powerful practice to place your awareness within the pranic tube, or the middle column that extends down through the middle of the body that we have discussed earlier. By holding your awareness in this pranic tube and chanting the sounds of the elements, you actually cause the prana that moves within the tube to become rarefied, to become enlivened by the sound, and to activate an awakening of the elements within your own body. It is something that must be experienced directly rather than talked about. Another thing to understand about this chant is that material from the unconscious very often begins to rise up because consciousness settles in a very deep and profound state. One can experience every state of consciousness, every state of awareness, from absolute boredom and fatigue to high states of ecstasy and bliss, including an awareness of one's own demons, one's own negative emotional material. All of this can be activated as one chants this chant. So it is important to understand that whatever arises while you are chanting is part of the clearing. By chanting the chant, ELKALEEMOM, a person is, in our understanding, acknowledging the sacredness of the elements, acknowledging the continuum of consciousness from the source that you may call God. Through its various subtle levels, all the way to the earth itself. Here, in the physical reality, which would be the densest sacred element level, one is affirming and acknowledging the earth is sacred, one's body as sacred, and one's place in the continuum of the consciousness that one may call God as sacred. It has been said that the body is the temple of God. We agree that your body is the sacred temple, for it is the space in which the four consciousness of earth, fire, water, and air offer themselves to you in service. We see, oh God, my nose is like itching. I don't know why every time I'm reading, my nose itches. We see earth as a sacred place and our picturing of the sacred elements of the archetypal realm of consciousness itself. We see earth being as close to God as any other realm, for the continuum is whole. Whether one experiences oneself as close to divinity or separated from it has nothing to do with whether one is on earth embodied or not. Okay, let's continue. One's view is something that is held in personal consciousness. It is possible to be in deep communion with the divine, to feel completely at home in consciousness and still be embodied. It's not necessary to leave Earth in order to go home. For home is a state of consciousness, a state of connectedness generated from within yourself. We see a dangerous situation upon the earth at this time, especially in highly technologically developed countries. This situation is the separation of oneself from nature and the elements. Modern culture has isolated itself and insulated itself from the natural elements, the natural world. Western society has taken the biblical inscription of to have dominion over nature to irresponsible heights. Humanity is oppressing nature. Humankind in the modern world is not only oppressing nature and the elements, but is seriously separating from them and, as a result, has lost much of its connection to the higher continuum of consciousness. When one is in nature, when one has a relationship to the elements, one is closer to the continuum of consciousness that leads to the archetypal realm. And from there, it is just one step into the divine. Whether the culture of the modern world will awaken to this and reverse its position is unclear. But as far as your individual consciousness is concerned, you can always form a relationship with the elements. You can form that linkage from your own awareness into the archetypal realm of the elements. Many indigenous people can do this. We would recommend that you frequently enter into nature and spend time with the natural elements, for they are the outpicturing of the archetypal patterns. Don't insulate yourselves from the air, the sun, fire, and other elements. Embrace them, appreciate them, allow your awareness and consciousness to become attuned to the four elements. Chant the names of the elements in a state of reverence, and an inner world will open up to you far beyond your imagination. As you enter this inner world, the archetypal world of elements, you will find a place where you are more deeply connected to the natural world around you, and you will see the world with new eyes. You will see and clearly understand that the earth itself is a sacred temple, and wherever you go, God is. And now, Virginia, do you have any questions? Virginia, in this chapter and elsewhere, you have discussed that the sanctity of earth what the sanctity of earth implies. So today I'd like to ask you about one comment that probably is my own hang-up, but I was uncomfortable with your remarks that being on earth has nothing to do with feeling close to God. I think I was a bit defensive about the word nothing, because I feel that for me and possibly other humans, to be among a lot of violence and negativity while having to constantly release a sense of separation and duality inside myself in the society does tend to negatively influence me in a very profound way. Am I mistaken about this? Hathor? Our statement was intended to reiterate that being close to the creative energy that you call God is a function of resonance and can occur at any level of the universe and in any dimension, whether one is in space, on the moon, on Earth, or in the void. What determines whether one is connected to and feels close to God is an internal thing. Therefore, being on earth need not be a hindrance to it. It is true that the lower race consciousness and vibrations, as you point out, can create difficulties, but we simply wanted to clarify that being on earth doesn't cancel out feeling close to God. It's an internal orientation of consciousness that counts. Virginia, thank you for acknowledging that to be in a lower race consciousness can tend to interfere with the stability and constancy of that feeling of connectedness. Hathor, yes, it can be difficult, very difficult to be in a three-dimensional reality when your senses are falsely reporting who you are. And there can sometimes be a battle between what the physical senses tell you and what your spirit tells you and yearns for. So we do acknowledge that the condition or situation of three-dimensional reality is not easy. We simply wanted to offer the thought that it is possible, even in your dimension, to be connected to and feel close to the Godhead or the creative energy. Virginia, yes, and I continue with another quote that you made earlier about home being a state of consciousness, which is exactly what we're describing here. Yet, I must admit that I and many light workers whom I know have sometimes felt a longing to be somewhere else. It's like a hunger for a more loving place. So in case some of our readers may have had that experience too, I hope you might give us some guidelines about how to be more centered here. How can we use sound or any other resource to really feel that this is the loving place we want to be, rather than wanting to go off into some other dimension or place where there is less separation? The Hathors. You have asked a very complex question energetically, and one that is very profound. Since it needs to be answered, let us do our best to address this very large question with several parts. There are the energetics, the issue of being present here. And then there is the question of safety and the emotional vibration of feeling connectedness and love. Some individuals, in order to cope with the brutality of this dimension, have assessed and identified with other realms of their consciousness which are not related to the third dimension. For these people, the pranic tube that extends down through the core of the body and into the earth is literally retracted and pulled up so that it does not make contact with the earth. In this way, they are energetically ungrounded, so they are able to float, as it were, and be in what seems to be a safe zone for them. So the first thing that must happen energetically for individuals in this position who wish to ground themselves physically is to extend the pranic tube down into the earth. Incidentally, we have no judgment as to whether your consciousness is here or not here while you are embodied in flesh. Consciousness can be somewhere else. We simply say that if you wish to be here and participate through your present embodiment in this passage or portal into the next dimension, this transformation that you're going through, you need to be grounded. By being grounded, you can respond appropriately in your body, your subtle nervous system, your instincts, and your superconscious levels to everything in your life. While safety may seem to lie beyond or to be outside of physical groundedness, nothing could be further from the truth. One needs to connect to the earth. This can be done by extending the pranic tube back into the earth if it has been retracted. I think Raj likes to say hello. He wouldn't do it the whole day just as I do the podcast. So the first thing is understanding the energetics of your nature. The second aspect has to do with the vibration of love, of safety. It is, of course, possible for a human consciousness to withdraw and retract into an internal state where love and interconnectedness is experienced. As a human, you have multidimensional aspects of consciousness. Therefore, it is possible to shift your awareness into an internal dimension of love and safety while being unconnected to the earth, i.e., ungrounded. Then one floats in one's bubble, to use the metaphor. What we hope is that more and more of you will choose to ground yourselves rather than simply retracting into your internal world. By grounding yourself and extending love outward to others, you benefit everyone, including yourself. Virginia. Thank you. I think your comments clarify patterns through which some of us may have sought the sanctuary of peace. Earlier, you spoke about the importance of the four sacred elements. Can you say anything about why the idea of the four sacred elements may strike some people as going back to primitiveness, and how to refute the idea if it is advisable? Hathors. In a way, it is going back to the primitive, but there's nothing wrong with the primitive. The primitive is the root from which consciousness springs, and human consciousness has become so disconnected from its own roots that you could easily devastate your own planet. So we recommend that you become more aware of your biological rootedness and your connection to other life forms on this planet. The fundamental understanding in many primitive and indigenous cultures is that the natural world is alive, meaning conscious. So, describing this aliveness as the deeper archetypal level of the four elements of earth, fire, water, and air, space, may be a helpful concept since at a subtle energy level of consciousness, these elements do exist. They are like archetypes for the elements that you would call the periodic table. We are not saying that the elements of the periodic table are superfluous. They give a description of the physical elements in this dimension. What we are clarifying is that in the subtler realm that holds or feeds into the third dimension, there are archetypal realms where the four elements are alive. To modern man, this seems quite a quaint idea, but there is a profound truth there. There's a profound truth here. The natural world consists of many interconnected fields of energy. These fields are conscious in that they respond with intelligence to changes in and around them. Thus, mist, for example, can be viewed at the chemical level merely as water vapor. But this is only one aspect. Some types of mist are actually conscious ephemeral beings, and one can, if one understands how, actually communicate with them. This communication, by the way, is done through the feeling nature and not through language. Virginia, could the word foundational or something that sounds more contemporary be used rather than primitive, which implies something less desirable? Pathos. This seems like, she really wants it to be said in a way that people will, not be put off, She's trying to find ways. Virginia is. Pathos, yes, one could use another term. However, remember that when you become so sophisticated as a culture, as a civilization, that you have sophistication levels upon sophistication and further abstractions upon abstractions. You get so far from the mental realm that you are not connected to the biological reality of your existence. What we say is that the biological level of your existence is the taproot by which consciousness is flowing into and expressing itself in this domain, not the mental. And the biological is primitive, basic. Perhaps it would be helpful to recall that biological experience of physical birth as a metaphor. Recall that within the woman's body is the seed of a child, and before it is fertilized, the seed holds within itself the potential for a physical human. If you go down into the egg itself and you look at the genetic information as held in the DNA codes, you would see that what we would call the subtle level of energy of biology. I'm sleepy, guys. I'm so sorry. I'm making a lot of mistakes today. Let me read that part over. If you go down into the egg itself and you look at the genetic information as held in the DNA codes, you would see what we would call the subtle level of biology. This is very basic, primitive, and essential, it is not? As you go subtler into the atomic matrix that holds that together, and subtler still, meaning smaller and smaller, you get to a domain where you enter pure consciousness. Pure consciousness and matter are the same thing. You are simply different vibratory rates. In consciousness, just prior to that beginning level of the atomic structure, is held a blueprint for the genetics, for the potential of a human in some future time. So that is the archetypal realm about which we spoke earlier. Within that archetypal realm are powerful energies that become the atomic forces known as your physics. Virginia, so you're saying that these energies are a dimensional blueprint? Hathor, yes, yes. The sacred elements are an archetypal dimensional blueprint for the unfolding of consciousness into matter in the form of the elements. Okay, that helps. Virginia, I thank you. Can you describe in a simple way how what we call our weather relates to these four sacred elements and what's currently happening? Pathos. Weather patterns are a complex interaction between physical forces such as heat, temperature, moisture, dryness, and pressure. So they are phenomena related to the subtle realm of the four elements and also to the level where it interconnects with consciousness and emotion. Very simply put, your weather patterns are an outpicturing of your own emotional and mental life. This may seem odd to those who look at it totally three-dimensionally, but this is cool. I didn't know that. Okay, this may seem odd to those who look at it totally three-dimensionally, but from other dimensions, it's very clear that when tornadoes and hurricanes move through, causing an increase of violent weather, they are an outpicturing of human consciousness interfacing with planetary consciousness and all other consciousness on this planet, including plant and animal. If you look at the flow of violent weather patterns, it is on the increase, and this is part of the chaos that is occurring as the entire planetary system, including humans, oscillates at faster frequencies. Emotions are then more volatile, and this affects what might be called the biosphere, the place where consciousness and biology meet. Virginia. Then why is it that certain regions on the planet tend to keep those patterns of tornadoes and hurricanes? The Hathors. It has to do with the grid of the planet in those specific regions. Where a particular region has more of one element than another, that element will predominate and create weather patterns unique to it. But as you look at the weather patterns today, you'll see that some tornadoes are occurring where they have not occurred traditionally. Virginia. So there's some shifting. Definitely there is shifting. Virginia. Then are you saying that the elements are responsible for the Earth's pole shifts that seem to go through certain cycles every so many thousands of years? And are you saying that the elements are responding to this human chaos? And that's what could likely cause a pole shift. Hathors. No, the pole shift is something else. Pole shift is caused by a cyclic pattern with a deeper pattern of consciousness. What we're saying is that many of the weather disturbances that are being experienced are the result of disturbed consciousness at the human level as it interacts with Earth. Virginia, since deeper cycles do exist that have precedence over human consciousness and weather, what are they? The Hathors. They are cosmic rhythms. Virginia. And what would we call them, Hathors? We might call it the rhythm of the sun, the rhythm of the earth star, Virginia. So are things such as volcanoes, earthquakes, tornadoes, and hurricanes any part of the higher rhythm, Hathors? Yes, they can be. However, they are not autonomous levels because they're interconnected. These grids, and we're not talking about the grid established by the pyramids, but a different grid, an earlier Earth conscious grid, tend to determine where the mountains will form, where the valleys will form, where the oceans will form. Then the land masses tend to swirl about the grid lines. The grid lines are sensitive to the greater cosmic rhythms of the sun and other celestial forces. Consequently, when something gets triggered, say in the sun, it can set off a resonant effect in both the magnetic lines and the non-magnetic grid lines that run through different areas, such as the Pacific Rim. Then you can suddenly get an increase of volcanic activity. We expect your scientists will shortly uncover that there is a more profound relationship between movements of the energy in the sun and what happens on Earth than they realized. Virginia, when we had the comet striking Jupiter a few years ago, what really happened? The Hathors. That was actually another rhythm, another level, the intergalactic level. The comet was coming from deeper space. The comet was coming from deeper space. I'm sorry, guys. My nose. The comet was coming from deeper space. The comet's fragments broke into pieces and collided with Jupiter. At an energetic level, what occurred was that Jupiter received an acupuncture treatment, which set off cascades of energy affecting you here on this planet. Not physical damage, just energetic effects. There was no real disturbance that science can determine, which was caused by the comet's collision with Jupiter. But energetically, there were many things that occurred as a result of the collision. On many subtle levels, people were affected, including emotional. Virginia. So, are we to understand that the complexities of all this make it very difficult for us to grasp while we are in human body? Yes. The Hathor said yes. Virginia. Then, what is your advice to us as we try to have some sense of stability and security while we're going through these things which we can't yet understand? The Hathors. Love more. Forgive more, and understand that love is not just a palliative. It's truly an energetic power that will lead you to the quickest and deepest space of stability. When you are able to enter into the right vibrational state of love and acceptance, then you are able to forgive. Then you are in a position that is energetically unmovable. Whatever happens around you will not be disturbing because you are in the fundamental tone, the fundamental octave that holds and binds the universe together. Consequently, you are literally above it all and untouched by it. So it is our advice in these times of disturbance to love more and to forgive more. Start with loving and forgiving yourself to the best of your ability and extend it outwards. We ask you to try the self-mastery exercises and to use our information about sound to assist yourself in the process. Virginia. Could you just say a little more about the sky goddess Hathor and whether that concept is related in any way to the sacred elements? Hathors. An indirect connection, yes. There was an understanding that the source, the mystery, expressed itself through the four elements, and air as the element most associated with the divine. Did not know that air was the element most associated with the divine. But I do love the air, the breeze. And I am an air sign, but I thought that's why I liked air and wind. I thought because I was an air sign. Oh, you need to understand that as the primitive consciousness looked at its reality being earthbound and dealing with three-dimensional reality, it seemed as if the gods came from above, from the sky realm. So they would associate the divine with the sky. Hathor, in her first manifestation, was the sky goddess. It was later that the Egyptians associated her with fertility. Thus, the first goddess of the Egyptian pantheon before the time of the pharaohs went through a metamorphosis in the minds of the people. At first, she was associated with the element of air, the sky, and during this period, she was seen as a manifestation of divine love and ecstasy. It was also during this latter manifestation. No, sorry, I missed a line there. So she was seen as a manifestation of divine love and ecstasy. Then she became associated with fertility and the earth. It was also during this latter manifestation that she became associated with sex and joy. Love and ecstasy continued to be associated with her as well. The work of the priestesses of the Temple of Hathor was double-natured. They were often asked to influence fertility and affect good births. This was the outer work of the temple. The esoteric hidden work of the temple was the use of alchemy, which involved the raising up of the initiate sexual energy to the higher energy levels of the body. The priestesses were well versed in this esoteric science, and much of Tantra can be traced back to these roots. Now we wish to leave you with these thoughts. Your body is the most sacred temple, for it is where heaven and earth conjoin. Your life is a gift born from the four elements. Without them, the universe would not exist. They respond to your love, send them your gratitude, and receive their message. Creation speaks to you through them with every breath you take and with every beat of your heart. Be still and listen. Wow, that is the end of chapter 5. So chapter 5, we learn a chant to say in groups of 4 so that we can enter, I think, the realm, what is it? The archetypal realm in which, so there's a chant they give us in groups, say in groups of 4 to enter the archetypal realm in which fire, water, earth, and air exists. They also say that if you do this, that you will be acknowledging the sacredness of the elements, acknowledging the continuum of consciousness from the source that you call God. We also know that what will happen, or could happen as well, is that the material from the unconscious very often begins to rise up because consciousness settles in a very deep state. I need to underline this. And you can experience a state of consciousness. You can experience every state of consciousness doing it, and some of your negative stuff may come up. So you need to be aware of that if you do the chant as they recommend. I'm not sure if I'm ready to do the chant, but I know I am okay with saying that I'm grateful for the elements and sending out like love to them with intention. I'm okay to do that right now. I don't know if I'm okay to do this chanting because I have to be prepared for what could possibly happen, you know? I'm not sure if that's would be just, yeah. We also learn about how our emotions affect weather. We learn about cosmic cycles, the cycle of the sun and the set of the Earth star. And we also learn about Hathor. Anything to learn about Hathor, I love to learn about Hathor. I feel like very connected to Hathor, among others. There are others I feel connected to. I'm grateful for all the help I'm getting from my guides and my angels. So anyways, so that is the episode for today. Next episode, we will do chapter 9, the fulcrum point. Yeah, so we'll do chapter 9, the fulcrum point next episode. And if I don't, I won't see you. I won't speak to you guys until next week. So have a great weekend, and I hope you're able to know that you are loved, to know that you are loved, to love yourself and invest in yourself and pay attention to yourself and honor what your body wants to do, what your heart wants, and see how that evolves, what the next step is. That would be kind of cool. And you know at the pace you want to go at and what's a good pace for you. So take your time with yourself. If you want to go fast and you feel like you're ready. I don't know. I like to go slow. and be ready. I like to go at the pace that's best for me. So whenever I ask for anything, I would say, if it's going to be an enjoyable experience for me and it's at the pace that's best for me to experience it. I just put that little caveat there. But yeah, so that's it, guys. Have a great weekend and we'll talk again next week. Bye.